Good morning and welcome to ASL's HR in 10.
At 10.
I'm Jason Perry
And I'm Kimberly Bradshaw.
and we're here to talk to you about the HR issues of the week. So, as I've announced on the last couple of these sessions, if you're watching live and you want to ask a question to make Kimberly look nervous, please feel free to type it in and theoretically it will pop up on my screen and we'll be able to deal with that while we're on air. But what we're going to do...
More nervous than usual then, huh?
Kimberly is as calm as a cucumber here when we do live feeds. It's fine. As long as her doorbell doesn't go and interrupt the internet connection. Kimberly, let's start with vaccines. It's all getting quite interesting again, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, as you know, a topic very close to my heart is people's reactions to vaccines. I have a lifelong history of reacting badly to them. And the majority of people are absolutely fine with their vaccinations. However, I was really poorly. I had 10 days where the most I could really do was make a cup of tea. And then another 10 days where I was so tired I struggled. And it raises the question of how do employers deal with that in terms of what they pay
Yes.
SSP?
Yes. I mean, the thing we do know is, I was going to say, you're unique. You're the exception here.
Obviously.
And there are few people who get the severe reactions, but I am hearing quite a lot of anecdotal evidence of people who are poorly for a couple of days who are getting, and it's not just a pain in the arm, might be getting sweats and chills and enough that they wouldn't go into work.
Yeah.
So I've tried to clarify this. I'm waiting a legal opinion, I should make clear. We have asked. I'm minded to think that you probably can use the COVID SSP for it because it is in that area. But I'm equally conscious as somebody who read the precise wording of that. It is very, very specific. And it's for COVID symptoms, it's for isolation because of symptoms. You may find if you do that, you're having to pay that back until we've got that clarification.
Yes, I'm with you on that. Surprise, surprise. I agree with you. I also wonder if there'll be employers out there who will be thinking, well, maybe we'll just give them full pay, or maybe we'll just do it anyway,
Yeah.
which is, a morally wonderful thing to do. But the issues they often don't think through is the precedent that they set for other
Yes.
illnesses.
Yeah. And I think the difficulty here is we want to encourage people in order to have the vaccine. Most of us as employers want people, and there's been some quite interesting research, which we'll catch up on perhaps in a minute, but the most striking of which I saw suggested 1 in 7 people would resign if forced to come back to work before the entire workforce had been vaccinated. And
Yeah.
go on, sorry.
Sorry, go on. No, you go.
I think employers have not just a moral duty, if I can get all ethical for a moment, but I think there's a business case. We're all here ultimately in business because we want to make a profit. And actually, in order to make a profit, you need to get your people running efficiently. And I think there's a really good argument for, I'm cautious to say encouraging or incentivizing, but actually making it pain-free. And if somebody has a vaccine and gets ill, you want to look after them so everybody else will want to get the vaccine.
Exactly, and it's very much a hearts and minds issue, as we've talked about in the past. The concern is that if that number of people have that response, is there going to be a witch hunt before they resign? And how does that impact people's civil rights not to have the vaccination? But, as we know, we're hearing already that even if you've had the vaccination, you might not be protected from some of the newer variants coming through. So I can wholeheartedly understand people's position not to want to work somewhere where people haven't been vaccinated.
Yeah.
But it's a sticky issue for employers.
Yes. And I think probably the best advice at the moment is to treat this with care and cautiously. We will try and get that clarification on legal opinion. And I did actually email a lawyer before we came on air this morning to see if I could clarify it. But as soon as we've got that, I will bring that on the next HR in 10. So hopefully next week we'll add that piece of information. And
what I thought was also interesting about that research, sorry, I cut you off in your prime,
sorry,
Jason.
I was only going to say that given we now appear to have a slight delay in the vaccine, those young people out there like me who are below 50 have just been told they have to wait at least another month for the vaccine. So I think we are still a few weeks away from this becoming a problem. So I think it's one to watch, one to be prepared for, but we'll aim to bring you that definitive answer just as soon as we can.
And there was me about to leap onto another topic. It was still the same research by Glassdoor, but what struck me was that 56% of people thought that the vaccination should be mandatory, which
Yes.
A lot of people I've spoken to believe that. Yes, there are the anti-vaxxers. And I know there's calls for the government to make it mandatory, which I think would cause positives and negatives in equal amounts. But I think it's very cunning. The whole travel passport thing is actually doing the trick, I think. I was talking to somebody in a meeting earlier who was an avid anti-vaxxer, wasn't going to have it no matter what, didn't matter what the variant was. And he has actually got his first jab this morning, later this morning, because he realised he wouldn't be able to go abroad. Or rather, his wife informed him that she would still be going abroad. She was having the vaccination. He would be paying for it. And if he didn't have the vaccination, he couldn't come.
Right. And that gave him the incentive. There's your incentive, isn't it? Yes.
It is.
And do you know... You've moved on to that extra piece of data, and there's quite a lot in that. That 56% of people think it should be mandatory rather ties into that whole theory of, 1 in 7 of them being the more extreme and saying they'll resign. I think probably the important thing to throw in while looking at this is not just the vaccine, but I would say is the lateral flow tests. And a really important one, we are now... I think it's 13 days away from the deadline. The deadline is Wednesday, the 31st of March, for employers to register for lateral flow testing. And we have established that there are procedures and policies that an employer is going to have to do a little bit of work on. But actually, again, if you're trying to build the confidence and the employee engagement, that's got to be a good thing to do, hasn't it?
It has, it really has. And I think it's brilliant that there's no limit to the size of an organisation that can actually do this. Where I think it's a problem is just how complicated it is to actually set it up. How many small businesses that we know would be able to set up a testing booth and get people in?
Yes.
And, if there are painter and decorators, say, they've got people out and about on jobs.
Yes.
What are they going to do? Hire one of those portable toilets and move it around the different sites?
Isn't this the age-old thing of government intervention, though? It's high regulation, high bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And what we really need to do is find people who can simplify and streamline it and make it possible for them. So I'd urge any employer to look at it. And if you don't already know, the web address, it's a gov.uk, as they always are, /get-workplace-coronavirus-tests. So it's a bit of a long one.
On the tongue.
Yeah, I know. They've made it really easy, haven't they? Yeah. So it's gov.uk/get-workplace-coronavirus-tests, but with hyphens in between each word. You've got just under 2 weeks to do it. But what it means is you can get lateral flow tests for all of your people, up to 2 tests a week, and the government will foot the bill right up until the end of June. It may well go beyond that, but at the moment, it's funded up to the end of June. So if you have people who are in work because they can't work from home, it's one of the other ways you can, at the moment, provide for their safety and look after them.
Absolutely. Yes. a good meaning, well-meaning piece of legislation,
Yes.
just not quite as well supported as it could be for those small
Absolutely.
businesses.
Kimberly, we are close to our timeline here.
Uh-oh.
HR in 10 talking for 9.5 minutes so far. Do you want to just touch on a couple of those Glassdoor stats and bring those in before we wrap up for today's session?
Yes, I thought it was interesting, and it ties in with the 1 in 7 said they would leave if people weren't vaccinated. Is that 68% wanted social distancing and the wearing of masks to continue, even after everybody's been vaccinated, and that speaks to me very much about the fear
Yes.
factor
Yeah.
of new variants coming through
Yes.
that we're not covered for, the fear of the workplace being, a hybrid of, a melting pot of disease and infection.
You make it sound so lovely.
I know, I have a great turn of phrase. But the one I thought was most, well, it made me laugh, and it perhaps shouldn't have, was the nearly 40% said that employers should have incentives for
Yes.
people to get vaccinated.
Yes. I don't know many employers that are going to do that, but I think the big thing it says to me, and I have a fear that you and I might actually rebadge this as the employer engagement briefing or something. We keep banging on about employer engagement, but it is so key. And actually, people being scared is a natural response to what we've been through for the past year. And your employees are going to be nervous, they're going to be cautious. And actually, we know from the data the virus is going down. It is in retreat, if that's the right word at the moment. And as responsible employers, we ought to be encouraging the freedom of that information, sharing it, educating people, if that's the right way of putting it, and helping people understand what the risks are so they don't live in fear. Cautious, yes, but fear, no. And the more we can do that, the better.
Sorry, Jason. Yeah, and involve them in the decision.
Absolutely.
If you get their buy-in to whatever it is you're planning to do, because they've been part of it, it'll go through much more smoothly.
Yes, absolutely. Kimberly, we've been talking for too long. HR in 10 is wonderful, but we'll have to leave other things for another week. So thank you very much. As ever, if you're watching this and find it useful, do click the subscribe to button and get an alert every time we go live. And please do share it and help others see the wisdom of this wonderfully entertaining session we run every Thursday. And thank you for watching. Thanks.